We
Make a motion to convene.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. All right, so we will carry on with the minutes of the November 14th council meeting.
Also move that we accept the minutes of November 14th.
Okay, Councillor Bengry moved to adopt the minutes of the meeting. All in favor? Thank you.
Somebody else's turn.
On the 6th, bylaws and policies, Jeff, if you want to come forward and kind of refresh us a little bit on the changes
Sure.
or further decision-making that we need to do.
Yeah, I'd like to, obviously we can discuss anything, but we've noted in the right-hand column any changes from the November 28th. We did make some significant changes, so I'll just give an overview. Looking at some of those projects that we had on that outside looking in list, we were looking for ways to fund them. And so what we did, and we can go back or we can find a happy medium here, but we removed 2nd Avenue 7th to 9th from the 2018 budget and we pushed it off. And there was a couple of reasons. One is that the other project we had was 5th East. The asphalt on 2nd Avenue is actually still pretty good. While the infrastructure underneath isn't great, the asphalt's in good shape. And we're out of the cast iron on 2nd Avenue. So Bart felt that we could do that one in a few years and still be okay, whereas we have cast iron and pour asphalt on 5th. And so we eliminated those two blocks, which changed the capital scene quite a bit. But what we'll do for tonight is I'll go through very quickly on your right-hand side, starting on the first page, and just make comment on anything. What Hawken will do at this point in time as more bills come in is average out the past years and average any expenses. You'll see a lot of that. It'll say something like adjusted to reflect historic. So we start to do that a bit. We have two items, and I want to clarify. On 124800, it says for golf course and campground rehabilitation. That is not for the golf course facility or campground facility. That's for the creek bank adjacent to those two properties. We just finished today, actually, finalizing all of our expenses from 2017's project. And so we have a better idea of what money we have left over in that grant that we're applying to extend. So that's why we were able to formalize that number a little bit. So that's what that number is. On page 2 at the bottom, the only changes is Kevin Phillips from Phillips Partners, who does our electrical consulting, he's starting to bring in now his estimates for 2018. So he's able to forecast a little bit better as we get closer. You will probably see that change in the spring before mill rate one more time, just because he's trying to get his forecast a little bit closer. So we were able to tweak that. On page 3, these first two things in reserves are new. The big one is the 90,000. We have been putting away some money in a golf course reserve since we changed the management of the golf course. As you know, we've received termination of that contract effective December 31st. Under that termination, there will be some obligations of the town that we are going to have to pay to complete that contract. I hope to have that formalized for you at the next meeting. I simply haven't had time to analyze it closely and do a review of their inventories. So we anticipate, and I'll show it in the expense side, we're bringing forward everything out of that golf reserve right now to fund it, and then I'll talk about the expense a little later. We made small tweaks to per diems, just an inflationary piece. Small tweak down the page on page 3 to WCB. Yep.
If I can, Councillor Drew and myself were at Schmidt Foundation last night for 4 hours. And we anticipate there will not be a 2% increase in our requisition this year, but possibly a 3% next year because of the minimum wage that's being introduced in August.
So when you say you're talking 3% in 2019?
Yes, or 18 or 19 budget.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So do you know the timing of when they're planning on delivering that requisition? Did they speak to that at all?
No.
Okay. That's one sometimes in the new year we have to tweak for mill rate. We think we're really close.
Like I said,
okay.
We look like there's not going to be that 2% increase.
Okay. Okay.
Councillor Bengry, could it be possible at your next meeting to quiz them as to when that thing, the requisition would
Yes.
come to the town?
You bet we can.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Okay. I want to just touch base very lightly because I can only touch lightly on the legal 212-200. You can see that's a extensive jump. I mentioned in my CAO report, again briefly, I don't want to discuss legal matters in the public realm right now, but we are considering pending litigation on the outfall line problems we're having. And I met with Standec after our dinner that Wednesday night. I ran over to the Hyatt, met with them, and they're expecting that if we don't get some results we're looking for. And I'll discuss that maybe in camera with council as that formalizes a little bit more. So we just bumped that in the event that that's probably down the road. So if we don't need it, that's great. I hope not. I think we have a good go-forward plan, but I can speak to that more in private. The municipal census was added on page 4. Now that may be a little high. I spoke with the city of Airdrie. They have some census resources that they were pitching at the AUMA trade show, and their costs were actually a lot less than what the quotes we got from the other provider. And so they have a much lower cost solution we may look to implement. So that could come down as low as about $4,000 to $5,000, and I'll try and get that quote on that soon, but I just learned about that at AUMA. Page 4, we just see some utility expenses adjusted to reflect historical, very minor. On page 5, the big one, the $500,000 piece at the top of that, 242230, that is the expense on golf course and campground from the disaster recovery. So again, we're starting to formalize what money's left over in that account. The rest of the page is pretty minor stuff. Again, historical and then increases. There's a water heater in there for the shop. It's apparently...
Jeff, will you back up a little bit on the disaster for the Lee Creek campground stuff? That was grant money, wasn't it?
Yeah, there is a town portion.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a predominantly grant-funded endeavor.
Do we have to send that back, whatever we have left over?
Well, it is not, they don't forward us that one, so it's simply a reimbursement basis.
Oh.
So they give us an allocation, and then actually today, Hawken and I signed off on the reconciliation for the year. And so we submit that. We still don't have any money from that. You, council may recall, we actually have a line of credit at the credit union that you authorized in case we're waiting a long time to get that reimbursement. We've been able to cash flow that to this point. We haven't had to use it.
Okay.
But we do have a credit instrument until we get reimbursed on that one.
Councillor Downs?
I'd like to back up to page 14 really quick. I'm sorry.
Page 4, sorry?
Page 4, yeah.
Yep.
Under the parade expense.
Which expense?
Parade, Remington Museum. Mark told me on Tuesday, that's 212-506. He told me on Saturday at the parade that the government has just sent them a letter notifying them that they will not be able to take any carriages or participate in any parades that throw candy from moving vehicles. Again, this is it, last year. But if it's a parade where they carry it, then that's not going to be an issue, but they will not take any animals or carriages out anymore. Unless they're just passed out, the people walking up and down the route, because I guess they've got some legal ramifications.
Issues, yeah.
And, so anyways, we're going to have to do some consideration on that down the road.
Thank you, Councillor Downs, for bringing that up. It's an important point for us. Yes.
Under that 212-506, Jeff, have we ever used in the last 3 or 4 years the bottom line on there, the carriage rental from?
Yeah, we did this year, but this is last year. So we'll have to find it from somewhere else. We kept it in there for the expense.
But who drives that carriage?
Lloyd.
No, he usually drives the Lethbridge Stampede.
No, that line item is to pay Lloyd for the Cardston parade.
Oh,
I mean, if he's in a driver's seat or not, but this is
it's his setup, yeah. Okay.
Can we just combine the scoopers and candy budget? Have the scoopers cost the candy?
It's a great idea.
Not a bad idea. That's efficiencies right there.
Just saying.
Okay, so page 6 is all but the bottom one you see there is just adjusted to reflect historical and inflationary increases, okay? So those are really minor changes, but we added a little bit of money, and in fact, next council meeting on the 12th, I'll give you a little heads up, I'm coming to council to release some of your operating contingency funds to cover overages on the outfall repair this year, so we're over on that budget. So we'll talk more about that on the 12th. And so we've put a little bit in for 2018 because we still don't know the extent of this issue and what our costs will be. We hope we know that very clearly by the end of 2018. So we didn't budget it going forward. If we have to budget that much every year going forward, we got a much bigger issue on our hands to discuss. So we do have some to cover ourselves off, and I hope, this is another account, I hope I don't spend a penny of it. That would be the preference. And if I do spend a penny of it, I hope it's reimbursed by a third party. There's nothing on page 7 of significance. It's a $300 utility. There's nothing on page 8 at all that's changed. Page 9 is also very, very minor. We added some specific dollars in there to focus on the bocce ball at the Atwood Soccer Park, to do a little bit of groundwork and irrigation work up there.
So, Mayor, can I just say
Please
something?
go ahead.
So you did look into that, so,
I didn't, this number showed up because Jill talked to Randy, who gave a number to Hoffman.
okay, so they haven't gone up to the soccer park, they haven't measured it out, or?
No, we just said at this point, what would we think it'll cost? I think they looked at changing some irrigation or adding a zone, adding some dirt, doing some of that work.
Leveling.
So we have some cash there. We can work through the logistics, exact location, all that later. We were just trying to allocate some cash for that
Thank you.
project.
All right,
So-
is that all right, Councillor Brown?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
So again, the rest is just inflation and historical on that page. Page 10, this one is, we'll see if we go down this road, we have some great big walls in that new renovation, and there's some discussion about getting the high school art class to come down and paint murals on the inside of the walls, and so we said we'd cover we wouldn't obviously have them carry any costs for materials. We'd cover all materials costs. So that is on page 10, the very first green line
The
there.
second line.
We put $2,500 in for supporting materials. We talked to, Jill talked to the art teacher at the high school, and she was very keen on the idea of having some kids come and paint murals and get that looking nice. We have some really large empty walls there. Now we have some long corridors, so we thought it might be a good idea to have some nice artwork on them.
Sure.
So that's what that is. The next, okay, so the one I need to talk about, 272702, golf course materials. We have a line in there called transitional expense and an assumption of a bill. So again, there's a lot of details to work out on this transition. But as you know, the agreement with Black Sands was that if they increase the value of the assets, meaning inventory and equipment over their time, the town would pay them the difference. It seems fair that we would do that. So they're suggesting they have an increase of about $110,000. I have not verified any of that. I was with all of you all last week, and so I haven't touched any of that. So we will lock up the place and do an inventory audit ourselves and make sure that we agree on the numbers they presented. We will look at the valuation of those things they presented, because they presented a value. So we will, again, we'll reconcile that and make sure we agree, and then we'll look at how that plays out. Because there's actually a few little pieces floating we have to reconcile before this all goes to bed. And so that'll be talked about more, but we're trying to cover that cost off. And,
Question,
yeah,
Councillor Brown.
we're gonna have to get a whole different evaluator on this, because they went and got one before we had a
Yeah.
chance to work together on it.
yeah, the amendment we made in March was that we would mutually agree on an appraiser for the equipment, and they went and got an appraiser for the equipment and then gave us their termination. So
Yeah,
we will
fair.
spot check some valuations and see what they look like without trying to incur a bunch of costs. So we'll feel it out here and see. And if it looks like we want to bring in someone independent, then we'll have to do that.
Okay.
And the cost will be borne by both of us.
Well, we'll have to figure that out, yeah. The other thing is on that fertilizer, this is a reasonable expectation. When they took it over from us in the winter,
We gave them.
we had pre-booked all the chemical and fertilizer for the previous year. That's how it works. They have already pre-booked their needs for the next year. So that's a receivable due in April. So we're inheriting that receivable.
That's that 23,000?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, if we come, whatever that arrangement looks like, and there's a new group maybe, or whatever that is, maybe they're gonna assume that
Yeah.
as part of their deal. I don't know. But right now, we need to be prepared to pay it.
Yeah.
I just want to look at, to make sure I understand these two.
What are we doing out there at Public
Oh, yeah,
Works out
okay.
there at the golf course right now?
We are digging a sewer line in from the Ellison development to that clubhouse. The septic tank failed at the clubhouse this summer. And so, because there was a manhole in relative proximity, it's not great, but it's just in that intersection, they ran a line over there, so we can abandon the septic system there. It's failed. It's been so long.
So it's going to connect with
It's into the-
Ellison?
Yeah, it's into the main sanitary, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what they were doing this week. Had a nice bit of weather to do that. There's some transfers in the general reserves. I think these were just,
For the pool.
I know, I need to ask Cawken exactly, they were allocated from general to pool reserves, so we just simply broke out a specific pool reserve. I'll ask him about that, a little clarification, but I don't think that had any impact. It was just moving within the budget. There is nothing on page 11.
Councillor Selk.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Selk.
Yes.
Regarding the pool, Jeff, when is that going to be done?
By the end of March, it has to be.
Well, the renovation portion, we need to have done by, I think it's mid-March, because we have some Canada 150, we have $200,000 of Canada 150 funding that is contingent that the renovation portion is. We have more time leeway on the addition, but obviously we want to open the end of May too, the 1st of June. So, yeah,
So they're working on the main part?
they're in the building doing the
part right
reno now, yeah.
That's where they're
Yeah.
focusing right
Yeah.
now.
But I mean, they're moving.
Yeah.
I asked today, we had a management
Quite
meeting
well.
today, and no one's panicked about timelines
No,
right now.
I think we will.
Everybody seems okay. The biggest hurdle, just a little heads up on this one, the biggest concern right now is when they tore out some of the existing interior walls, they were cinder block walls, which you could actually almost just push over. But they were sitting on little footings that were poured one piece in with the floor. And so they had to jackhammer and cut all those out. So the biggest concern now for Mike is how to smooth that floor out, that the tile will sit. So that's going to be, once all the cinder blocks back in, all the new walls are in, the mess portion of this is over, thankfully, because it was a real mess in there for a while. So demo's done, the messy part's over, and they're just going to have to float a floor. They're going to have to thin set the floor, put a float on it, and try and get the right slope and smoothness. So, but Bart said he's not hearing any concerns about time frame. Everyone seems relatively comfortable still.
Good.
All the rough-in plumbing and electrical's done in both parts, addition and renovation. So it is coming along fairly
The
well.
outside bathrooms.
The ones you can get to, yeah, those are roughed, everything's roughed in.
Yeah,
So
saw that.
we had to close the Windy City Gym for about 3 weeks while they did all that, because they had to core just a ton of holes in that floor, and it's a foot-thick concrete floor. So that made a heck of a mess, but that seems to be getting cleaned up. So that's the answer, Councillor Selk, is the reno must be done by March 15th, and then the addition by the time we open. Where did we end? Page 11, there was nothing. Page 12. So this first one, and this is that account, this is the major utility capital reserve. So this is where we say anything that we have extra money, we put in this reserve. So this is our balancing account. And so it'll move a little bit between now and December as little things tweak, but that's what we use to balance the budget and reserve anything we can. It was a position of the council 3 years ago when we created this to try and be around $100,000 to $120,000 on a 3-year running average. And so we're just trying to get up around that number on a 3-year average. Then we get into the sources of capital funds. Excuse me. And you can see there's just some adjustments to the federal gas tax and the MSI. And I want to explain that really quickly one more time. We get a set amount every year, but we do not put that whole amount in the budget. We only put what we're using of it in that year, because we're allowed to roll over unused portions for a number of years. So we might have a little pocket of money in MSI that actually isn't in the budget if something were to come up. So Hawken puts what's being used from MSI, not what's available. Otherwise, we have this false surplus, right?
All right, so then the difference is invested in long term.
Yeah, we get the money, so it's invested, and we know we have it, and we've used it before. I think it was a year or so ago, we
Yeah.
actually had a motion to use accumulated MSI for a project that was not in the budget but came up and was emergent. So we kind of use it as a bit of an emergency as well,
Yeah.
if we have a little there.
Good.
So that's the first two, federal gas and MSI. We've had a couple, when we have funding contingent on capital, we have, if the cost changes, so does the grant funding or the cash funding. So that's what you see here. The floor matting project was scaled down. They could do a little more than they thought they could do as much as they needed for a little less money, let me put it that way. So you're just seeing that the corresponding funding has changed.
So did they get the grant?
It's not awarded yet, no, it's applied for. So that's a contingent account. If we don't get the grant, we're not doing the project.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Then we have, so you'll also see, if you go to 194580, this is the contributed assets. This is when we get stuff from third parties. We have put, and you'll see it in the expenses, we have placed the spray park in 2019. We've also placed an additional $45,000 grant funding that we're hoping to go find between now and 2019.
Right.
So we'll have a better discussion on that a year from now, how realistic that looks. So we've put some additional grant funding that we'll work with another service club, or we'll see what we can find. So that's what that is.
Jeff, if the Rotarians get that 200.
CFAP, yeah.
They've got a 30-month window, is that correct?
From the time it's
So we really
awarded.
can't could we push it off to 220 if we had?
If we did it early spring, we could, yeah.
Okay.
Because if we're looking at, they won't even know until March 2018. So you have 30 months from then.
Okay.
So we could be mid-2020.
2020, yeah.
Yeah. So we've placed that in 2019,
That's right.
as per council's discussion last week. You can see some, I want to mention the other thing. Jill came home from our planning session and started working with Hawken and said, look, we need to have a little more priority for recreation in the capital budget. And so all of a sudden when I got back, I had things like the new dugouts at Redford Park. I had a few little projects in there, and so that's why some of these have changed, because we were actually reserving for some of these things. So we were putting money away. So that's what you see down on 195592 from reserves capital. Brought in from reserves to fund dugouts, brought in from reserves to fund equipment purchases. So they brought in some money that was reserved. You'll see the expense on the next page here too. Councillor Bengry, you look like you got a question.
Yes.
195,592 on page 12, down at the bottom. Who assesses the equipment for replacement?
I leave that to Bart, probably a lot via Tim as well.
And it,
Do we bring in somebody in that
Okay.
field
No.
all right,
out of the industry? I'm not wondering if we don't need to start doing that.
Are you concerned we're replacing it too quickly or not
Okay.
quick enough?
Too quickly, maybe.
okay. So here is maybe a portion of the answer, might be not all of it. I understand that all what we have for equipment of that sort has a depreciation rate that is built in by the industry. And I believe that the town is following that rate. Does that mean that after 10 years, the truck is
Exactly.
dead or not is a different story? Is that the time to replace it, or can we add 2 years, 3 years of life to it? That is something that the foreman will look at, and they do not always replace it when there is depreciation that is completed. Sometimes I keep it in the books, the value is nil, but it's still a workable truck.
I would suggest we would base replacement far more on condition than depreciation. It's considered, obviously, for tangible capital asset management, has to be. We have to consider it for that. But I would suggest they're looking at hours and condition, well, and mileage where appropriate, but on the heavy equipment, it's hours and condition.
And the reason why I asked this question, Jeff, is we take our snow water. We're looking at possible replacement, we decided to go to the reconditioning. And now we've got a unit there, and it would be a second-hand unit when we bought it.
No, we bought it new.
Did we buy
Yep.
it new?
Yes, 5 years ago.
Okay, but it operated 5 years, we put $60,000 in it, it's good for another 5-7 years.
We hope so.
Yeah, and I'm not wondering, because of this, the use of this equipment where we're subcontracting a lot of our backhoe work out, do we need to be looking at this backhoe?
I guess I'm relatively comfortable that those guys know the condition of the machine. I'm just not in a position to speak to you about the condition of these machines. I don't know. So Tim knows how much we're putting into them every year for repairs. They're aware of the hours. You know, they talk with industry. They got a bit of a feel for what things are going for. So I'm not sure exactly what to tell you there. I understand where you're coming from, but I can't speak personally to the condition of these machines recommended.
And there are specs that are given by the manufacturer as to how many hours of service you can expect out of that. Doesn't mean that you cannot get more. Of course, you hope you can get more, but sometimes you get less.
Yeah. So if there was a direction from council to bring in a third party for evaluation, we would pursue that. But that would be something I would leave to you to discuss.
Can I just, sorry.
Go ahead.
So are we having issues with equipment breaking down in those timelines that we've set?
Not terribly, no. We have I mean, I can't speak to before my time here, I could just look at on the books. We have modernized our equipment and fleet a lot in the last 9 years. We had a complete fleet with no book value.
Yeah.
It was almost completely depreciated. Now, it's not to say you have to have book value, it's non-cash expense, right? So it was working, but no, we've modernized the fleet and just tried to keep them on a modest replacement schedule. But again, there's no hard rule that says this truck that we bought in 2017 goes in 2023. It's not, there's nothing like that.
But the plan that we have in place is working.
The plan we have is everything by year, everything by mileage, and then assessments of condition. And we move them through based on, we've moved out newer trucks because their condition was poorer. It's simply based on what we're using them for and what their condition of the time is. We had a truck when I first started that was relatively new, and we had endless problems with the transmission. It was a money pit. We just continued to put money into this thing, and we got rid of it, even though it was by far one of the newer trucks in the fleet. And we got value out of it because it was newer, but it's just a money pit. So it's a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, the science is not perfect.
And we don't have a huge heavy equipment fleet.
Yeah.
So we have one big loader, 2 small backhoes, and 4 tandem trucks. Well, 5 with the wastewater ones. And a grader. So we're not sitting on, a fleet of graders or, that kind of thing. But by all means, if there's some third-party verification, we would entertain it. If you want to discuss that down the road here.
Okay.
So on page 13, and we're getting close to the end here. Oh, sorry,
Just
Councillor.
have a question. We're at the top, RCMP's frequency will no longer be available to town. What does that mean?
Can you, sorry, on page 13. So what that means is the province is changing. We have been able to borrow and to participate in the RCMP's frequency for emergency radio, but the type of radios we have to be updated because they're going to a provincial
What number are you on?
system. It's at the very top.
21762.
I don't know all the exact details, I'm forgetting the acronym, but the province is moving to a different frequency.
Okay.
And so we can't share that anymore, and so we have to get equipment that will share that frequency. It's a dual frequency. I don't know a lot about it, I've just heard the gist of it.
Okay.
Is that kind of like what the fire and the ambulance
Same
were
thing.
going
It's the
through?
same
They
Same
were
thing.
2 different frequencies, so
Yeah.
they kind
Right.
of got them together?
That's right.
Is now is the police going to sync with them?
Amfrax, something like that? Anyway,
Um,
yeah, I believe so.
Okay,
I believe so.
that would be.
So yes, it's
that
a
would be
frequency issue.
Best.
So page 13, I wanted to touch on, we added under capital sidewalk replacement, the 6th Street West versus 2nd Avenue. Now, we took this from the operating side, but the reason we moved it here is because we are proposing not to do 2nd Avenue and we're proposing to do 5th, this would continue the sidewalk and curb and gutter past the soccer park. so that we can appropriately land that asphalt when we redo it.
All right, so regarding the Lee Creek Kronen, that is still something at the bottom, sanitary sewer capital,
Oh, okay.
846,000.
Yep.
So that is something we have retained.
That is contingent on the 90% being grant funded.
Yes, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
And when is that application going?
Not till spring. I talked to Michaela at AUMA, she was at the trade show, they had a resiliency grant booth. Not to be bleak, but they have 50 million and change to distribute, and they have applications for 495 million. So.
Which means that we might be in a queue very low on the bottom.
And again, this is a project that we can roll over a couple of years before we
Yes.
need to get really concerned. But we're gonna stay in the queue and strengthen the application each time. So yes, they're 100% oversubscribed.
Okay, thanks.
Under the new pavement, and we'll talk about this one a little bit next. We added $25,000 for asphalt improvement 10th Street West. Asphalt improvement maybe isn't the best title. We're gonna talk next about local improvement, and there may be a portion of the, if council chooses and if the community chooses to go ahead, we need to be prepared to potentially fund a portion.
Which?
So sorry, it's down in new pavement 232763. We added $25,000 for 10th Street West.
Oh, yeah.
And the town may have a financial role to play in the local improvement there if everyone agrees to go forward that way. And we'll talk about that one next.
Are we talking asphalt, or are we talking that top coat that we've been putting?
Well-
That
We've got
depends.
different models.
That depends what the community
It
would
depends
decide.
what the
Yeah.
landowners will decide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
assumptions, right?
They will have to decide.
So a couple of those were postponed to free up some cash and move some capital around. Do you see that? We have that pipe bursting on First to Second Street East. I'm a little concerned that price went up a lot since last time I presented it, so I'll follow up on that, but I don't know if that's because we got some other quotes in, or it's become more complex than we first understood. I need to figure that out. This is your friend up on Second, so that'll be pipe bursting that. A couple things just moved, like Second Avenue, which I talked about, and 6th Street.
So
And-
it's kind of an expensive
and so-
project.
What you see is the pavement, the water, the sanitary sewer, they all move because they're all part of the same project. So each of those categories, you're just seeing the same projects move, the water, the sewer, the asphalt. So that's 13. Page 14 is the dugouts at Redford are in there, and then playground equipment at 806 Second Street West. This is the last, I would say, and we've been trying to change tot lots every couple of years. This would be the last major one to change. It's south of the cobblestone, down that area. We call it the Purple Park. It's an old plastic purple setup.
Purple Park?
And then you can see we added the spray park in 2019. And then we scaled back that floor mats to help fit everything in the budget. So those are all the changes since I presented this to you last time. Councillor?
Questions, Councillor Barnes?
What kind of response have we gotten from the Rotary with the, asking them that, telling them that we'll put the 97 there, dependent on them doing some fundraising, and if we
They don't
need
know
it.
that yet.
Pardon me?
They don't know that yet. It's,
Okay.
you
The
gotta approve
letter
it
is
tonight.
there in your
Okay.
packet.
Yeah, they don't know that yet.
Okay,
The letter has to be approved.
Yeah.
okay.
As I mentioned to Jeff on the Cenotaph project, I'm hoping it's not going to cost the town anything. It's looking pretty favorable. If we can get the grant that we're looking for, and the Legion kicks when I think they will kick in, so that's 50,000 we won't
Which would
have
be
to worry
great.
about.
Wow.
Well, we'll be very happy if that
I
happens.
believe we budgeted 25,000 in some form of grant funding, but there may be more, which is great. So this has changed a bit. Again, some capital was moved, some things were added, but that's the changes. So how the process, I want to just explain what happens now. We only have one more meeting in this calendar year. So no pressure, but no, we have options. You have two options as a council. On December 12th, when we present the budget again, you can choose to approve that budget as your operating budget for the next year. If you do not like some of the things on that budget, you do not have to approve it. You can approve an interim budget where we use 2017's operating budget until you've approved the new one.
Yeah.
So that gives you a little bit of wiggle room on that. If there's something that comes up that we're just, we only have one more stab at this collectively.
Okay, is there any items that you see on those pages that really require more attention? Do you want maybe, Jeff, to go and review those $513,000 of additional budget consideration? Would you maybe go at the last page, and maybe that might help?
Oh, this is, so I'll preface this. This is a touch, I don't want to call it premature. We had that last list for you where we had 90 or 300 and something thousand. So some of that got implemented as per our discussion last week. These were things that came up literally just last week when we met. I don't know that we have a panic. We haven't done due diligence on a lot of those yet. So we could start to look at these in 2019 and 20 potentially. Or if there's a feeling that some of them have to find their way in, that's fine too. We'll try and make it work.
So do you want to look at this list at this point, Councillor, and see if there's anything there that you feel must be pushed forward? And always remember, whatever you push forward there requires money from somewhere that is already allocated somewhere else. So it's a question of trading. Councillor Bengry.
I'm looking at the last page, Jeff, and I'm down on the third item from the bottom.
The California upgrades?
Yeah, what's the situation there? What kind of upgrades are they doing? They're going to rebuild that thing?
No.
No.
We are having an assessment. I can't remember the firm. Shemdedek? Oh, Alex was working on it. Wasn't you? Sorry. Alex was, I forget the firm. We're having it assessed. So there's an architect in that industry. And Historic Resources is going to pay about half the cost. We had some money for Carbome in this 2017 year, and we were able to get, I think, some 50-cent dollars to do an assessment of the entire facility and make recommendations about a capital plan ongoing. We don't know what that looks like yet. We've plugged a number in anticipation of probably front-loading a lot of those renovations, because that's a pretty big number. But we will know better next year, even potentially before we set mill rate, what they would consider the priorities. We just don't know yet, so we plugged a number to kind of placehold it for now.
Okay.
Does that satisfy you, Councillor?
Yep.
Okay.
I hope to be able to show you a full assessment.
Okay, Councillor Selk?
So Jeff, the item that's one up from that,
Mhm.
is that the item that we talked about last week?
That would be,
That's what we talked about.
Brandon did a layout for Jill. Again, I came home and had all this stuff, and I thought, okay, we haven't passed the resolutions yet, but it's good, we're moving. So Jill had him do a layout of those empty spaces, and just to give a cost on building the road beds as a start. So that isn't utility extensions to this point, but it would build road bed and lay it out for now.
Okay,
And,
go ahead.
okay, so when you say lay it out, does that include gravel pads?
Yep, yes. Yeah, it would build all the roadways, the pads, the parking areas. It just didn't extend sewer and water at this point.
Did they have any idea of the number they could put down there?
I need to go grab it. I think he had 20 sites in that spot, pull-throughs, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I just saw it very briefly.
All right.
I was
Councillor
just,
Brown? No, just a second. Councillor Brown? And then Councillor Brown.
The one just up from that one?
Yeah, we'll just work our way up here. Yep.
$100,000?
Again, very conceptual. Our hope would be that it's a partnership, so it's not in your budget. We've just put it on the list.
When you say $100,000, 25,000 is for
Remember,
benefits.
25% on top of
Right.
salary for benefits
But
and everything
in
else.
partnership with West
Yeah,
Rent.
so the hope would be that there is another
50-50?
potential funding.
We don't know.
Don't know.
Oh, okay, so
No clue.
this is literally our wish list
Yeah,
come to life.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, ish.
We had talked about a number of things. We were trying to get just a number to
Okay,
get them on the
okay.
sheet.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Essentially, what you're looking at here, those are not all funded through the
Right.
budget that we
Right,
have.
right.
That will have to find different sources. Okay, Councillor Brown.
okay, Jeff, I just for for my own interest sake here, when we're talking replacing the one-time, I'm backing up to page 14, 592,762, with a Ford F-250.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Okay, what's the year on that one ton? I mean, is it a,
Ooh, I'd have to go look. It's probably I think it's a 2000.
about a 2,000?
Yeah, I believe it's either 2000 or 01.
So there's not a heck of a lot of value there.
Not a lot, probably.
Okay.
The reason I think I know that one is we swapped it with one we had in Parks and Rec because it fit the electrical box better. I kind of remember something with that a few years ago.
Yeah.
I think it's in 2001.
Okay.
All right?
And so what is it going to be used for, the new one?
Well, that's their electrical runaround truck. So
Okay.
they have their service box on the back of it,
Okay.
and they just got a 3/4 ton, so they don't.
So that truck then is, are you saying it's no more serviceable? Have we
Well,
got
what we
it around
can-
somewhere?
We'll see if there's a good place for it and get rid of the worst one.
Yeah,
It's getting up there. It's starting to be a bit of a,
the old purple one?
well, maybe that one, yeah.
Councillor Bengry?
Jeff, this is the wish list on the back, right?
Yep. Well, look, if I could clarify that a bit, it's things we anticipated coming out of your planning session that you may want to consider in the next year or so.
Okay, so we have that $100,000 position,
Yeah.
but we also looked in here in the budget, and there's a position there for ECDev.
Well, we've-
Tell me about that.
Yeah, we've always budgeted that because I'll allocate some of, in the past it was me.
It was.
Right.
So there was a portion of my wage that went to that GL.
Right.
And so now it's a portion of Alex's that goes there. Now we've had him working predominantly on grant
Okay.
applications.
So maybe what you're trying to say is that a position that is hired, but it is part of the salary of an employee that's already at the town that works in ECDev for so many hours a week.
Yeah.
And that's represent that amount of money.
Yeah, it's not an additional
If you-
position.
If you look at Jeff's salary, it's cut in 20 different
Well, yeah.
mini budgets, the same type of rate.
But is it going to evolve evolution process into a full-time position?
Well, that is a question that is worthwhile asking, but at this time, in this budget, it will not.
Well, it hasn't been full-time in my time with the town, because it was, again,
always
just
was
a part of
part-time.
mine.
If you remember, we tried to create a full-time position with the county, but they were not interested at that point, at the model we presented. So we tried to go that way, it didn't quite go according to what I wanted to do.
I think there's a lot of merit in splicing up where your time is spent. We do that with
Right.
AHS and IT, and we actually can forecast where our time is going to be spent in projects or,
Right.
working with clinical people or whatever. So I think it's a good way for us to look statistically, like, even down the road and say, historically, this is where we've spent our money and this is where our time's been. I think that's a good way to do that.
Yeah, for us, we've been doing it to try and accurately reflect the cost of the service.
Yeah.
So we'll journal entry, we may have budgeted 30,000, for example, and then when you're talking about Councillor Bengry, but at the end of the year, we'll go through the timesheets, go through the coding and say the actual cost was this.
Right.
So it's very transparent and the accountability is greater, really. It is more reflective of the truth of what's happening in town. Councillor Selk?
Okay, Jeff, the second to the bottom.
Yep.
Recycling facility.
Yeah.
So that's the place marker, right, that figure, but you're looking at approximately,
Well, I think we have two ways to look at this. One is we reserve for a while till we have enough money to build something, or we build something and use what we would reserve to pay the venture.
right?
I'm not encouraging debt for the municipality, but money is so historically cheap that if we're ever going to entertain this kind of infrastructure through debenture, if council chooses to entertain it, now's the time.
I think we have a facility in the town that we use for
Yeah.
that. It's called the Recycling Dome.
Yeah. So whether you want to open that can of worms right now, but yeah, we certainly, if we place that, and I wouldn't mind finding a place for that in the budget, by the way, simply because then we have a choice whether we're going to use it as a reserve or use it as a debenture payment. But either way, it's about the same money.
Well, essentially, as we move towards the idea of a commission, and with the need to reduce the landfill of all recyclable, sooner or later, we need, as a council, to take a position. There will have to be a position taken, not only by ourselves, but by all towns that belong to the commission. Can carry on the way we're going.
Yeah, can I?
Go ahead, Councillor Selk.
That was brought up even in our first meeting with Chief Mountain, just because they want to encourage everyone. I mean, every year our tonnage increases and we get to a point where at the end of the year, we're trucking
Diverting.
to someplace else so we don't get into a difficult position with how much we're putting in the landfill. So they're wanting everyone to have a more robust recycling program.
Well, the issue with the trucking out is that now we're trucking to Lethbridge, but sooner or later, Lethbridge will not accept fuel that is mixed with recyclable. And so that is coming quicker than we can imagine. The days that say no more, then what do we do? Where do we go?
Jeff, if you remember right, we had sort of a little thing out in the AUMA conference area in the
Tabor.
hallway there with Tabor. And maybe that's something we should explore, because they have a company that trucks all of their garbage, all their recycles. They don't handle
They
it.
don't sort it or anything, but
Yeah.
they're a little advantage because they're so close to Lethbridge where it's going to be sorted.
No, it goes to Calgary. Didn't he
I
say?
thought he said it was
went to
going on the west
Calgary?
side, or the east side of Lethbridge, I thought, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is a lot of other factors.
Is that?
Only once.
That's right.
Yeah, for us, there are other factors. It also is a source of revenue to support an organization of handicap that is
What can they do?
allowing some work for them. So it's not as cut and dry in our community as what it is possibly in other communities. We need to figure out ways that sit down together. But regardless of how it happens, I think we need to start to plan for it.
Yeah, I was saying, if we're gonna do an enhanced facility, have we done a feasibility on it and anything? Maybe we need to go there.
Okay, well,
And-
if you want to put that as a recommendation.
Well, I definitely think, I mean, if we don't really know what we're looking at, other than a facility that may have to spend $500,000, we better find out what it's gonna entail. So I would make that recommendation that we do a feasibility and look into it to see, because down the road, if we're gonna have to go there, I like what Jeff says, the money is cheap right now, and if we're gonna, we need to act on it.
Okay,
So
well,
that's my
so
recommendation.
Councillor, is that your recommendation or is that a motion?
I would make a motion to that effect.
Okay, well, spell your motion.
Before you make it,
Okay.
can I recommend?
Sure.
The motion is to get the quotes on the feasibility study, because we may find that that is very expensive. So if you make a motion to do it, we can make that motion right after we get the quotes. But
Okay?
if, for a good first step, I
Well,
can inquire
let's
to
just
some
do the
consulting
recommendation to
firms.
look into it for now.
Well, to
then.
get quotes on a
Yeah.
feasibility study, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right,
I'm okay with
questions? Councillor Bengry?
Before we did that, Councillor Lawrence, I would suggest that we have a presentation from that association that is doing the recycling right now and see what their capabilities are. See how much they can do and whether they want to be involved in this.
I think that would probably be part of the feasibility.
Well, if you remember,
Well,
that came the last council and did that presentation.
Well, I've met with them recently, and they obviously have some capacity concerns,
Yes.
certainly.
But they can access money too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some,
But I agree with Councillor Barnes, that'll be part of the due diligence. I think
Yeah.
we just need to find out how much that due diligence is gonna cost.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So,
Because I just know what the Solid Waste Authority's project cost, that study, and that was a big one.
yeah. All right, so there is a motion on the table
A recommendation.
I'll make a motion.
What is the motion?
Yeah, make
You
a
got to
motion.
make it.
That's the motion to make to have a recommendation to look into feasibility.
It's my
Okay,
motion to
do we understand?
Okay. Any further questions? Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, so that will be
Okay,
to add to your list of to-do.
no problem.
All right, so thank you so much, Jeff, and thank Falcon also. I think we're moving in the right
You want
direction.
these back? You can keep them for the next one, if something comes up, and needs light reading.
All right. So if you look on the 6B, there are here a list of recommendations that were made at our planning session, and I want to thank you all so much for the wonderful contribution you made individually and collectively to that planning session. I have never seen something quite as efficient. So thank you. There are a lot of good recommendations that are going to shape what we're going to do as part of our strategic plan for this town and for the better. Thank you. So let's go through them. I hope you have read them. There are a couple, about 3 of them, I think, that need a little bit more clarification for administration to move on regarding the item. For example, under 4, request a meeting with Sergeant Semeniak to discuss policy strategy and priorities. So the question here is, can we clarify if this meeting is with the whole council or the policing committee? So the policing committee right now has Councillor Selk and myself and Councillor Drew. So do you want this subcommittee to meet with Sergeant Semeniak and bring you back the recommendation, and would that work for you? I see nods on this side. Councillor Bounds, are you okay with that? Okay, so Jeff, I think there is a consensus to have the subcommittee deal with that item and report to council.
I suggest we bring that speaker down, the new commander, and have him do a presentation to council on what he can do for us.
Okay, so let me tell you, at that AUMA meeting, the commander of the RCMP, whom Sergeant Semeniak has not met yet, if you remember, that commander said to us that he was going to visit the 111 detachment, and that he 120, I mean over 100, and that he will be coming in every community where there is an RCMP detachment, and he intended to do that within the year. So if that is the case, within a year, we should have the visit of the commander, and he will no doubt contact myself as a representing council, or come to council, I do not know.
Well, then are we getting the cart before the horse is my question.
No.
Because if he comes down and he says to the staff sergeant, I'd like to see this, 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 and this, and you present this to your council.
I don't really think it will go quite like that. Councillor Selk?
I think it's the other way around. We
Exactly.
go with
You're a bit more
our
assertive.
delegation to Sergeant Semeniak and say, this is what we want. We want this, 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 and this.
Yes,
And if he doesn't,
exactly.
then the next step would be to invite the CO to come down.
Yes.
We'll ask him to come.
I was just going to say the same thing.
All right. So I really think what we need to do is be able to be a little bit more assertive as to what we want for the town, and then try to negotiate how we're going to get there. Okay, so there is another item.
Item 18, direct administration to set up a dinner with the Cardston County with the intention of getting acquainted one with another. The question of administration is that dinner open to spouses and partners? And we suppose in our mind that it was so. It's not a working meeting, it's a social meeting.
Yeah.
So would it be all right if spouses are invited? You have more chance to get the full council there.
Okay.
Definitely.
We haven't determined a date for that yet.
I think
No,
Jeff will work with
Yeah.
the CEO at the county.
In the
Thank
new
you.
year sometime, or we're talking
Right.
sooner?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, the last one is an interesting one, 19. We said we were interested in doing something with Moses Lake this afternoon. I had the chance to meet with Councillor Marcel Wizelhat, and just happened to tell him about this item, that we were interested as a council to do something. And he said, well, we're doing something on the 18th, so I said, why don't we partner? And they're looking forward to partnering. So here is what he told me we need to do ASAP. Send a letter to Chief and Council talking about our intention to be helping with that dinner that is going to happen. Chief and Council supposed to be there, will be surveying. I said we would love to be there and helping. And he was thrilled.
That's December the 18th?
Yeah, I believe it's December the 18th. So Jeff needs to get a motion from council to send a letter to Chief and Council
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion. that we send
Okay.
that, so.
regarding our joint collaborative effort toward that Moses.
Contribute monetarily.
Yeah, or whatever that is.
So this,
That's what he was saying. He was saying we would kind of split the cost.
What kind of money are we talking?
And we don't know. Let them figure it out.
so
You were talking to 100 people, weren't you?
my understanding was I thought that dinner on the 18th was going to be the blood tribe police and it was mostly for the youth.
No, that's not. Oh,
Right?
Yes.
the blood tribe police is maybe something else. Could you maybe find out exactly?
Sure.
Because I understood that it was a community.
Okay.
So
I understood it was a
it might
Moses Lake
be.
Hall on the 18th and it was the blood tribe police for the youth, so.
Okay, could you maybe figure it out? Maybe if you talk to Marcel,
I can text them right now.
get him to help us. Well, thank you for this 2 bits worth of clarification. Councillor Bengry.
I'd like to review that number 6 and
Okay, can you give?
the action that we're expecting our administration to do. I just don't know where we're going with this. Do we need to form a bylaw? Do we need to?
No, we have the bylaw.
We just need to enforce it, isn't that what we agreed on?
Okay,
Guys, I'll speak to what my context, the take from me was, is that we have a number of problem properties. I want Brad to prepare a briefing of what's been done to date on them. Some of them are going to have some political implication and the stricter enforcement, so I just wanted to brief council and get a bit of a go-forward plan, so we're all on the same page about how we're dealing with them.
Thank you.
so essentially the briefing will be prepared and presented to
Yeah, one
council
down
in
the street.
December.
It's getting worse every day.
I thought that Brad had,
Already done it.
well, he'd been working on incrementally
Yeah.
trying to clean things up and work towards.
So I want to be able to talk to council, and if that fails, and we've got to take some punitive actions, which are going to have political ramifications, and I just want us to be on the same page that when we're moving forward, if it's we have a few properties that if we move forward more aggressively or punitively, you're going to hear about it. It's coming to you. and you're gonna be the big bad guys, and you're gonna be doing all these terrible things. So I want you to have the heads up via briefing in confidence before we do that.
Well,
That's what I was
so-
asking for.
Yeah, thank you very much for that clarification, Councillor Bengry. Any other question regarding those items that we want to bring forward?
Yeah, just wondering how things are going on preparing the bylaw for parking of recreation vehicles. I drove up the East Hill there the other day, and I think there's 9 vehicles on one property up there.
Okay, are we talking about recreational
I'm
vehicles?
talking about not just recreational, he's got that one parked somewhere, but there's vehicles out there, there's nowhere for anybody. He's parked in other neighboring,
If they're registered and licensed, they're legally parked.
Okay, councillors, if that bylaw doesn't work,
single lot.
if that bylaw doesn't work for you, we can review that bylaw and change the terms of it. You have that right,
Yeah.
except you have to make it so that it reflects what we would do to anybody
Yeah.
in this town,
I understand
and
that.
not target one specific.
Mhm.
Because if you start to do a bylaw to specific one particular, you're going to be every week changing your bylaws,
Yeah.
and that is not wise.
No.
I think in the situation of a bylaw concerning enforcement by Brad or our other individual, we need to consult with them, and they need to come to council and say, hey, we need to have this bylaw redone this way or whatever. I think Brad's got a good handle on what he expects out of a bylaw and what he can enforce and what he can't enforce. For us to sit down and say, hey, we're gonna tweak this bylaw this way, this way, this way, I think we're going down the wrong path.
He needs to consult.
Councillor Selk?
Can I just clarify, I think it was brought up by myself at our planning session about a particular property. And that trailer, that recreational vehicle is now parked in the individual's driveway.
Thank you.
So, right, Jeff?
Make a motion, we extend for half an hour to 8:30.
Hold on, if I might, just the point where you have a motion on the table.
Yes, we do.
Probably, maybe needs rescinded.
Yeah, so we need to check to make sure that we have the right time and the right date, right?
Yeah, so what do we want to do there? We either
Okay,
sign
we're going
behind it or we
to
pull it.
maybe change that motion to direct administration to
Sure.
check
Yeah.
I make a
the
motion on
event.
purpose.
Investigate the details of the event.
Yeah.
and Report back to council.
Yep.
Okay. I just texted Councillor Weaselhead, so I'll see when I
Okay.
get back.
All in favor?
If
Thank
now.
you.
I'll make the motion to extend for half an hour.
Thank
Aren't
you. All
aren't
in
you
favor?
optimistic?
Thank you.
One
All right.
One other thing, Mayor.
Go ahead,
Just,
Councillor Bounce.
since I was talking about this at the meeting up in Calgary, the number 8
Okay.
on the prohibition of taking materials from the transfer station.
Ah.
Anything happening there yet?
Well, if I could, I don't have direction from council to pursue any of this yet.
Okay.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
Do you want us to just start?
If you could, that would
motions
be
on all
great.
this so that we can-
Okay,
Proceed.
yeah, do you know
we can
something?
proceed?
Yes, please.
Jeff, is that what you
Maybe
would
we just
like?
put them all under
Okay.
one blanket,
All right,
or what?
so, right now we have dealt with the 3 that needed clarification for administration.
Yeah.
Now what we need to do is do motions on every single item.
So you haven't made motions on the 3 you clarified, so when you get to them, just for example, on number 4.
Yeah,
so
we
request a
will do it.
meeting to discuss with the ad hoc policing committee.
Yes,
Now you've clarified it, away we go.
Yes.
But yes, unfortunately as it might be, we've got them all pre-typed into the minutes.
Right.
Go.
we will do so. Okay, so, number 1, motion is needed. So, help me not to reread them. Bring forward your motion and save me a little bit of rereading them all. Go ahead, Councillor Selk.
I move that we set up a meeting with MP Glenn Motts and the ad hoc policing committee to discuss concerns and resources for potential solutions.
Is that
Okay.
meeting not happening already?
This was going to be individual, not
It's
with you.
it's
Oh,
another,
okay.
it's another meeting.
Separate from that.
Okay, questions? Saying none. All in favor? Thank you. Second motion.
Going around in
It's
circles.
regarding the nature of the bus that is dropping off people in Cardston. Who wants to take a crack at this one?
I'll make a motion to direct administration to investigate the nature of the bus that's dropping people off in Cardston on a daily basis.
Okay. With pickup in the evening. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion to direct administration to review the role and community exposure of bylaw liaison position in an effort to increase Main Street exposure and business awareness.
Okay, fair enough. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, fourth, you need to make sure you put the proper word in there.
I'll make that motion and request to
Councillor
meet with
Cook.
Sergeant Semeniuk to meet with the policing committee to clarify, that's the one he did, isn't it?
Okay, that's it. All in favor? Thank you. All right, let's move on to 5.
I make a motion that we request that the representative of the AAPG present to council regarding the potential of a local police commission.
Okay. Questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Thank you. By the way, on their blood reserve, it is Dexter Boothhead who is the chair of the policing commission. 6. On-site
Councillor
premises, Councillor Bengry.
I'll make a motion to direct administration to prepare a briefing on unsightly property concerns and specific actions being taken and ramifications.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. All right, 7.
I make a motion that we direct administration to draft a bylaw regulating the parking of recreational vehicles on town streets on a seasonal basis.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
What are we classing as recreational vehicles? All recreational vehicles, whether they're motorized or not?
Okay, so that's according to the act.
You can debate that one and bring in the draft.
Okay.
Maybe you want to put a definition in it?
So we're
All
just,
in favor? Okay, thank you. 8. So,
So I'll
Go
make
ahead,
a
Councillor
motion
Drew.
to direct administration to investigate a bylaw amendment to prohibit certain residents from taking materials from the transfer station.
always.
Or waste collection sites.
Okay, questions?
I just have a bit of a question about how we worded that, prohibit certain residents.
I think anyone,
That, yeah, how do you determine those certain residents?
That's right.
Those are the repeat offenders that causes a problem because they are a little bit of a hoarder.
My thought was when we draft the bylaw, it would be residents who currently have an order against them for unsightly premises.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my thought.
Okay,
We could put
so,
that in there somehow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I'll reflect it there.
all right. Clarification, it's okay? All in favor, thank you. Next,
I'll make a motion to direct administration to prepare a request for proposal document for the management of the golf course.
all right, any questions? No? All in favor? This is regarding the termination contract and the need to work something for the golf course. 10,
I would make a motion, direct administration to prepare and present a capital plan for the golf course, including the clubhouse, and the related seasonal campground site that we talked about.
all right, so the campground site expansion, we know is already in the budget. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Councillor Brown?
I make a motion to direct administration to request a meeting with West Wind School Division about the following items. A, Lions Park agreement including capital investment. B, partnering in upgrading the elementary school basketball courts. C, partnering in capital upgrade or rebuild of tennis courts. D, investigate the concepts of a community recreation or athletic coordinator.
Okay. Questions?
Who would go to that meeting? Would it be the intermunicipal people that attend that
That's a very good question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who would you prefer to see at that meeting?
Yeah, I'm sure, since it is dealing with another level of government that Councillor Selk and I are supposed to be dealing with, I would think that would be what we would be going to.
Mhm.
I also
Okay.
think I should go if I'm
As a
over Parks.
recreation person, I would like to see this one.
Okay, all right, so are we all right having a trio of councillors going there? You don't want 4, because then you council.
So can I go?
Should.
Because I wanted the
Yeah,
3.
you're one of the
So-
three.
So,
Okay.
so we will have to have that indicated there. Okay? So essentially, are we all in favor of having those 3 councillors? Okay, so all in favor? Thank you. Okay? All right.
I'll make a motion to direct administration to investigate the costs and other logistical considerations for changing all ball diamonds in town to full shale infields.
Good, I'll make a few people happy. Questions? All in favor? Thank you. I see there's I see in the budget there's a train load
Saw that.
of share coming.
We're investigating the costs.
All right, well, I think they already started us. Okay, 13, thank you, administration. 13, so no women business at this point.
Okay, I would make a motion to direct administration to investigate and report back on costs and other logistical considerations for building and maintaining a lawn bowling or bocce ball facility at the Atwood Soccer Park location.
All right. Questions? All in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, 14, we're moving along, we're doing well, there's only 7 more to go.
I'll make a motion to direct administration to draft a letter to the Rotary Club concerning the spray park that the town will fund up to $97,000 in cash and in-kind expenses towards the spray park, provided that Rotarians can show that all other avenues of funding have been investigated and exhausted. Also include that the town prefers a 2019 construction timeline.
Yeah, that's what is budgeted for right
Is this
now.
going to be in principle?
No, that is a real, that's a real
Yeah,
McCoy.
that's what I'm suggesting.
That's a real McCoy. Questions? All in favor? Thank you.
Opposed?
Opposed?
I'm opposed to that one.
Okay. Councillor Bengry, I appreciate you having the courage to say so. Okay, 15. Direct administration to bring back a recommendation. So who wants to do that one?
Okay, I move to direct administration to bring back recommendation including a full financial investigation of the solar installation size to offset street lighting costs.
Okay. We discussed that quite a bit. No questions? All in favor? Thank you. Next.
I'd make a motion to direct administration to draft and bring to council for approval a letter to the Premier and the Ministries of Parks and Recreation, Energy and Health regarding their inability to meet with us during the AUMA, and the letter be forwarded or CC'd to the AUMA Board of Directors.
Thank you. I think it's absolutely essential to have that happening. If you saw in the correspondence, there is again a letter that went unanswered for months.
I do believe that's one of the major reasons we go to AUMA.
That's right.
Those meetings.
Absolutely.
Okay,
You'd think.
all in favor? Thank you very much. So administration will draft us a letter.
I make a motion to direct administration to request to work with the county administration to begin an intermunicipal collaboration framework process by completing the administration item as per section 708.29A of the Modernization Municipal Government Act.
That's a mouthful, but
That number off the top of your head.
yeah.
Thanks, Doug.
It's a very important thing to get started with the preliminaries.
Yep.
And I hope that our social will help us towards that.
Yep.
Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you very much. And I'm very hopeful, and the future will tell, but I really hope we can work together. 18 will need to have the clarification with it, meaning that the spouses are invited.
I'll make a motion to direct administration to organize a dinner with Cardston County Council and Cardston, Town of Cardston Council, and significant others or spouses
Spouses or partners.
for just a get to know each other luncheon or dinner.
Okay. Questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Thank you. We're moving along. We're doing well. The next one will need also,
You may want to skip that one, because you
The-
made a motion earlier about.
yeah,
investigating
so
dinner.
what I was going to say, we don't need to repeat ourselves here.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to 20.
Okay.
Councillor Selk, you want to?
I make a motion that we refer the H-friendly community studies to the FCSS committee for review and recommendations of items they would like to see be given priority.
Okay. Questions? Seeing none. All in favor? Thank you. And the next one, Councillor Selk, you may want to do this one, it's
Sure.
yours.
I'll make a motion to direct administration to meet with myself
With Councillor Selk.
to bring a recommendation to council on how the Economic Development Committee should function going forward.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Wow.
I'd make one comment. I'd like,
Go ahead.
since we are being televised and some people may watch it, that the public realize that we spent quite a bit of time discussing these beforehand.
Yes. This was a whole day's work.
Yes.
And honestly, for a whole day's work, I never seen such a positive outcome with actionable. So I'm so proud of you guys. Thank you.
Mayor, can I
Yes.
get additional comment? I don't know if this is the appropriate time or not, but we may want to explore the same thing with the town of McGrath that we're doing with the county of Cardston in terms of maybe entering into an intermunicipal agreement with them.
For which purpose?
Well, it would be arranging some sort of a function where we get together with them to get to know the McGrath Town Council.
Okay, do you
And then-
feel we have to work on an intermunicipal level with McGrath? Help me understand.
Well, and maybe Jeff can help me out here. We used to have agreements with the town of McGrath where we would exchange equipment, we would exchange
I
manpower
see what
on
you're
a
saying.
case-by-case basis. Do we still do that?
That's an interesting
Not to my
point.
knowledge, no, that's new to me. The closest I've seen, again, there's been no issues with McGrath, don't get me wrong. We did have some discussions a few years ago about some amalgamation of emergency services,
Right.
fire and emergency services, or at least agreements, mutual aid agreements on emergency services.
See, like we used to exchange equipment if they needed our camera equipment for cameraing their sewer and water services. We would let them, if they wanted to use our street sweeper, we used to do that.
Oh, okay.
So we used to exchange equipment back and forth from McGrath, and I don't know if that's ever happened, but it would make sense in terms of economies of scale rather than them buying a grader and us buying a grader. I'm using this as an example, but us buying a grader and then buying a grader, we buy a grader and then
Or
they use it.
regionally.
Or
That's
regional, yeah.
an interesting concept. We were looking a little bit of the garbage collection with Raymond. Yeah,
So-
interesting.
I just throw that out as a suggestion of something that we may want to pursue with our neighboring community.
How do you want us to work this? Do you want a recommendation from this council table for you to investigate the possibility? Councillor Bengry wants to say something, it's ONC.
This came up with when we served together, and they were very, very inclusive of this idea. And I think we did do a couple of pieces of equipment. They never had a big enough backhoe at that time, and they were doing some development. But I also think that it would reflect to the county of Cardston that, hey, the town of McGrath and the town of Cardston are doing an interchange, maybe we better get on board.
I don't want to get in the middle of county politics. Trust me, I don't want to be there. Yes.
So my question would be to those councillors that were on previously, why was it stopped?
Well, I do not know. On the,
Change, I think it was.
for the past 7 years, I have
Yeah.
not, I have been on council
So how
7
many
years,
years
never
ago?
heard about it.
That was 10 plus years ago.
Yeah. Okay, could we maybe just simply
We look at-
allow administration to maybe touch base with the CEO and try to see if there is some interest there?
I've got lunch with Wade next Thursday.
Okay, so why don't you
So I
touch
can
base with
See
them?
what the thought is there. And he's been around a little longer than I have, so he may have some history on that too.
I was gonna say, do you want that by way of motion?
Well, no, I'm gonna have lunch with him.
No,
I'll bring it up.
it's-
I can
Say
put it
that
in my
they're-
report in December.
Say that there may be a desire on the part of this council to
Sure.
do some collaborative work with the town of McGrath, if we can.
Yeah, we have a lunch next Thursday, so I'll bring it up.
Okay, well, that's very interesting, you see? I was going to say,
Inspired.
I'm fired.
there are sometimes great value in having people who have been there before, because you bring some interesting idea, both of you.
I'm sure you're tired too.
Okay, all right, so let's go towards the local improvement tax on 10th Street West. Now, this is a very interesting concept that was brought forward by a resident on that street who feels that there's maybe a potential appetite for the landowners on that street to participate with the town in portion in a local improvement tax. And if you understand a local improvement tax, it's not a tax that is applied to all landowners in a town, but satisfied one specific need in a specific area. So, Councillor Selk, Councillor Bengry.
Jeff, can you
But-
clarify something? I thought that's how we always did this with respect to paving and curbs and sidewalks, is it was, there's a local improvement tax
Okay.
for every street that
Okay.
you've ever done in town.
So that is not the model. If you bought your lot and did not expect a street to be built on it that will be with sidewalk and the same specs, you probably would have dug yourself pathways through the fields. And in time, you may have put gravel and put a little bit more gravel. And it never was up to specs. But because they never paid for it in the price of the lot.
Right, that's what I'm getting at.
Mhm.
But
That-
the improvements were.
The local improvement tax was applied to anyone who had curbs and sidewalks and
Right.
asphalt in front of their house.
Right.
Anyone who didn't participate in the,
Eh.
that was my understanding, is that's how we funded it all
Yeah.
along.
Yeah.
Okay, there has
So,
not.
Jeff is
okay.
going to speak and explain.
There has not been a local improvement tax since I've worked for the town. We've never done one.
Because it was all done before.
So I've seen it go
Exactly.
two ways. One is when the town was heavy in the investment residential development game. Obviously, they put in all the costs of the asphalt, curb, sidewalk, and everything, and charged it in the price of the lot. Then the council of the day backed away from further residential development, with the exception of Scaldo, which was in process. That would have been Councillor Court's time. And then the private developer simply gets it out of their price of their lot. So we haven't seen a local improvement example since I've been here. This is the first one I've really dealt with. Because what you have is you have what we'll call an inferior infrastructure, inferior road, and the residents desiring a superior road, but they never paid the costs of the superior road when they purchased their land. And the other consideration for council is, what is the benefit? Is it acute to an area, or is it broad? So the council can determine to participate at any level you wish if you perceive it to be broad benefit. In this case, I would suggest it's fairly acute benefit, it's a dead-end road. But, yeah, I haven't seen any of these happen in my time, but yes, it's certainly been employed, I would imagine been employed before. It's not an uncommon thing. But when the town was developing, they developed right to the finished spec. and included it in the lot. They didn't develop to an inferior standard, so it went right to the finished spec.
Yeah, 'cause
So, yeah, that's,
my previous time on council, that's how I was educated,
Mhm.
that it was done as a local improvement tax
Yeah.
on most of the streets prior to these
okay.
newer subdivisions.
Okay.
And you see, when we came to council, things changed, but things changed before 7 years ago, so I don't know.
If I may, from a different time zone, when I was not living in Cardston, we bought a house that the pavement was not gravel. The town came around and there had to be a certain percentage of the block, the people, that had to accept that.
Yeah,
And so we paid for it as a local improvement tax when they put the
Okay.
pavement in.
so that is where, what you're talking about is a little bit what's factored in the numbers.
Yeah.
You need 2/3 of the owners to petition the town towards that local improvement. And you need to have, that need to represent 50% of the assessment value of the land.
Yep.
If that is met, then that local improvement can be applied.
I just want to clarify a couple things on this one. We have not received a formal application for local
No, we
improvement.
haven't.
So one thing to be clear is if we receive a formal application, you are compelled to create a local improvement tax. We have not done that. We've simply had one of the residents say, I think there might be an appetite. We'd like to know the numbers so as a community we could have some discussion. So this isn't a formal thing. So what I thought is, well, this is a good time to bring it to council because this hasn't been addressed in many years in Cardston. So it's a good chance for us just to talk about the theory of local improvement. You have every option to say, no, those people have been there for a long time, we're going to go in, we're going to build that road bed, we're going to pave it for them. You can do that. But again, you have a principle here of,
But I have to pay for it.
well, that's your position. I'm saying you have any position on the spectrum.
Oh,
You can
okay,
take any
okay.
position.
I
that
see
you
what
wish.
you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I jumped the gun there, but I was thinking in terms of local improvement.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, this, again, I'm dating myself, but this topic has come up with whatever street it is that goes to, yeah.
Is that 12?
Those are the-
West assistant.
No, this is, no, I'm talking about, I'm going historical here, I'm not
Oh.
talking about 10th Street West.
Okay.
Whatever road it is that goes from your place to the Grandview, or the
Oh, second.
Second.
East.
Second East.
Yeah.
There's part of it that's not paved. It was understood
Yeah.
way back when that if those residents wanted a paved street, they could participate in a local
Right.
improvement tax, and we were all for it. I would still think, from my perspective, that I would be fully supportive of a local improvement tax if they want a street that's superior, not inferior, and that we would participate in that.
Yeah, and if you saw in the budget, there's $25,000 that
Yeah,
has
we don't know what that
been
number
set
will look
aside
like.
as a number, right? Councillor Bengry.
The question I'm going to ask our administration, do you charge by front footage? And so what happens to a corner property?
So that's why you
That's a
see on
very
the
good
sheet,
question.
you have frontage and flankage.
Yeah.
The flankage is where it's at the side and you would consider them not to have the full benefit of the improvement. So for example, on 10th Street, and I'll use an example, the road's going to go by Bob and Nell Holland's for a number of feet, a number of meters.
Yes.
But they're really not going to realize much
benefit.
benefit from that going by their flankage. So flankage traditionally would be looked at at a much lower rate per meter than frontage would be, because there's not a realized benefit. So this is not a perfect formula for it, by the way. This is simply to get an indication of what it may look like so that neighborhood could start to have some discussion. And you as council, again, might say, you know what? We're game to go in 50,000, we're only gonna go 25,000, or we're going in none.
Yeah.
We're going in none. It's a true local improvement, and
So-
there's not general benefits, so that's our position. And so that's how you deal with flankages, as it's called in the term. And as an aside, front footage is probably one of the more equitable ways to do it, but you can do it simply based on assessment per square meter. You can do it by a number of ways. The problem with assessment per square meter is if I have a lot with a frontage on 10 that's 100 feet deep, and you have one that's 400 feet deep, we only have the same kind of benefit per front foot, but you have 4 times the square meters, and it can get a little funny that way.
Councillor Bengry.
Jeff, I've been up that 10th Street 100 times. You're gonna have to widen it.
Yep.
You're gonna have to put in bigger culverts in places.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to realign culverts. Is all that in the cost here?
Brandon specifically talked about the proper widths and
That's what you
drainage,
said
and I assume
it
it's
is.
all there, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Selk.
All right, let's just get this over with. Jeff, what do you need from us? Do you want a
Does
motion
council
from
support
us?
this in principle? Would you like us to pursue this further with the residents on 10th Street?
So do
Yeah.
you want us to give you a motion that says that we want you to pursue this in
Yes,
principle?
exactly.
Pursue the public
Yes.
consultation with the
Make that
residents of
motion
10th
so
Street.
we
Yeah.
can move on.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Questions?
Let's speak to one person has come forward.
Yeah. Now, the reason.
Okay, no, but that person has had all a little chat around.
They asked if we prepare some costs because they said they feel there may be an appetite with the neighborhood, and they kind of want to spearhead it as the community.
It's just
Person, yes.
one person that has come forward, but we know that discussion has been
Yeah,
had
they're representing a
in
big group.
in a group.
Good idea.
Yeah.
My only question is, in the numbers that you presented,
Mhm.
is a portion of the town, the 25,000 that you have calculated inside that to reduce the cost?
So in the full asphalt version, our portion would be 27,000 roughly. This formula
So
needs a
that's
little
what you
tweaking.
had?
16,000 on the asphalt
all
oil,
right.
we're calling it.
So that's what I
Yeah,
wanted to know.
and 15
Thanks.
for straight oil.
All right, so there is a motion. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, other business, party in the parks, that should be an easy one. In the past, there's been traditional to move the party in the park from the Sunday to the Saturday. Are we okay with that? That'll go to June the
Do you want a
30th.
motion on that?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion that we move the party of the park to the
To
TV floor.
30th.
To the 30th of June.
2018,
the meeting.
due to the
Yeah.
Sunday, July 1st. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Staff safety breakfast,
Mayor. Do we need to go for an extension?
Yeah, you do.
I'm afraid we have, always bring it to
Do it.
9 o'clock when you do an extension, so it allows us not
It's
to
not hopeful.
do it twice.
That was hopeful.
Yeah,
So am I saying 9:30 or?
no, 9 o'clock, because
Everybody knows.
Okay.
I make a motion that we extend our meeting until 9 o'clock.
because afterwards you're no longer
Functioning?
supposed to be meeting. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. All right, the staff safety breakfast, December the 9th?
Looking at me on this one? December 19th.
That's what I said,
Yeah.
so I was good. Oh, wow, memory, not too bad.
What is that?
I'll make
So
scrambled
you're-
eggs.
Here is what we do every year for the staff because of their wonderful safety record. We offer them breakfast. We cook breakfast for them, actually. So what we need to do is, how many of you are able to flip pancakes and cook some eggs? And, okay, so, raise your hand there, guys, because we need,
Oh, but
it's very early in the
8
morning.
o'clock, so we
8
we
o'clock.
start about 6, 7
Yeah.
o'clock.
Tentatively, unless I'm starting now.
Okay, so pretty well, everybody. So, Jeff, you need to send us a reminder because, you
Yeah,
know,
I'll add it to your
We
calendar.
have a short memory.
you're right.
Hmm?
You said so.
19th of December.
Yeah, thank you. 7C is a letter of support, so you want to have a motion to approve that letter to be sent.
We already did.
No, you approved,
You made a motion for us to write one.
yeah, so you need to approve.
I move that we approve that letter.
Thank you. All in favor? That's it. Now, we have a little bit of time to discuss 7D, E. If you want to give me comments, or if you think the recommendation we made need to be upgraded, please tell me what you think. First of all, I will say that the presentation was excellent. It was a non-binding and non-threatening presentation in a sense that it was not time sensitive per se. Councillor Brown asked an interesting question, which was, what's the time frame? So the time frame is not tomorrow, it's within 5 years, it's reasonable. There are cost study, etc. to be done. I understand that now it appears that they are going to push their presentation to council after we have our own meeting, so that will be better. So
Do you want our opinions on this? Is that what you're looking for?
what else would you like to do regarding the asking?
I would, looking at this, I think it's time. If we go through with this, it's generational, it'll be good for years and years to come. We've got an aging population that needs facilities like this. I'm not suggesting that we just jump in board, but I think it's definitely time to look very seriously at something like this.
Okay, thank you for this comment. Councillor Selk.
Every person that I've ever talked to about this notion has had a positive reaction, and I've talked to some seniors about it, and I've talked to other groups. I think we have an opportunity here to do something that would be
Our legacy.
a legacy,
Mhm.
so that we would be able to do something for the community. And I think we'd be foolish not to do it.
Okay. We're going to give Jeff a little bit of a few minutes to help us here, because he might have some more specifics that he might need answers to.
Just for the sake of time, I want to throw something out. I agree with what's been said, and I think that this deserves some good due diligence.
Mhm.
And the question is, what's the role of the town now in this? Because what I don't want to do, and what I always fear, is that we're going to quash this and hijack this grassroots momentum. We're going to take it over, and it's going to be a town committee.
Okay.
And I don't want it to be that, so I think there's a way we can lend support, we can show support, we can be at the table. I saw this model with the college steering committee. Now, at the end of the day, it was determined that project wasn't going to happen, but it was a great process to do the due diligence. The answer was it wasn't feasible. But it was a grassroots movement that the town lent support. We did it in a couple of ways. We lent councillors as members of that board, but we also lent some administrative support. So we had somebody there to kind of do a little homework and do a little investigation, and we lent some hours of administration. So, we're the major stakeholder here. It would probably be reasonable if we did that again, I would suggest. The other resource we have, and I'm volunteering without actually talking to him about this, but we don't need to be spending, in my opinion, a bunch of money up front to look at site plans and basic engineering. We have Brandon as a CET who can do, you got this many square feet laid out this way, where can it fit, where are the utilities in relation, what's the cost to extend that. He can be quite a valuable resource that isn't third party to us. And it may be reasonable, depending on the season for him, but in the spring, it's not a bad time for him if he could put some hours into something like this. That might be a very good thing for us to offer up, to save the group a little bit of, well, eventually we're going to be paying a lot of those costs anyway. So save some of those third-party costs.
Okay, so you're talking administrative support, you're
To
talking...
some level.
Some level, you're talking engineering support. That would be already quite something interesting. Councillor Selk, Councillor Bengry.
I did have an individual, not like from the surrounding community, who said that if we wanted someone to spearhead this in terms of seeking quotes and doing all of that sort of stuff to determine what it is we want, he would be willing to volunteer his time and do it as sort of a way to pay back the community.
Okay, so is that maybe for you the time to maybe meet with...
Well, I think that's something that,
With
again, this goes back to, we want to do, I don't want to say we want to do as little as possible, but anyone in the community at the grassroots level that has expertise that
Needs
can
to
do it,
come to that
that's what we
table.
want to see them do.
Absolutely.
And we need to be there to support that.
Well, he's a contractor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the committee says, hey, let's bring this guy in and do our costing, beautiful. I don't want to take it on, not for a second.
Now, I need to clarify something there, if I might. His vision might be a little bit more grand than what we're thinking of.
Okay, I think I got it.
That's all right, too.
It's yes, and I understand that very gentleman wants to also make a presentation. So that is a little bit of a different take on a similar idea, but that is again, if that very person wants to make a presentation at council, we must encourage them to come at council before we go too much ahead and further.
Jeff,
I told him that, by the way.
Jeff, with your comments there, would you suggest that you went back to the presentation that was made tonight and say you need to organize a committee and we will have some people on that committee?
If you remember, we decided that Councillor Brown and Councillor Selk were going to serve on
And
that
also
committee.
Brandon?
And
Well,
Tim,
As
and-
needed.
Well, it's just with the school.
No,
No,
so
no,
Brandon as
no.
needed, I'm not suggesting he's their full-time employee, I'm just saying as needed, he would be a great resource for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so we already have those things. Councillor Brown?
No, I just agree with what Jeff said. I think we have to be really careful here that we're not taking it over, because it's really easy for grassroots, because I've been there, to just say, here's our idea, right? Now make it happen,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
We gotta be careful.
What was
They've
written in the
started
law?
this. I think the thought is that a couple of us counselors are going to be there. We will listen when they need returning and reporting back to council, but let them steamroll in the way they're going. Yes, Jeff can give them direction, but we have to be really careful that this isn't.
Councillor, this is why I'm very glad you're part of that committee, because you know the ropes and you know how to make them successful. So I will count on you to help them.
No pressure.
And you have done it before, so you can steer them in the right direction. You have Councillor Selk there that's going to be with you. I think you guys can help. Yes.
No. To that, I would just also add that I feel like we all are looking down the road and seeing that this is coming. This is something that this community needs in order. We just need it. This is something that is needed in this community. I think all of us kind of have talked about it. We all kind of feel that way. It's just the direction it goes is what we're most concerned about. We need to make sure that proper steps and those things are taken care of.
Well, there's, right now we are at a conceptual level.
Right.
And it's a concept needs to take shape. And so that takes time, that takes effort, and that takes keeping a sense of that vision.
Right.
Because that's what you guys had
Right.
when you did your football field, soccer field. All right, so
where do we go with this? Do we
What
need
am I
a
telling him?
resolution here or something?
you have, first of all, I really think, give me a show of hand. Are we all in support of this initiative to begin with? Okay, so there we go. So in principle, we are in favor of these initiatives, and we want to see the group working together to give it a little bit more shape.
And the extent of the resources we're extending at this time is 2 councillors?
2 councillors and administrative
As needed.
and the
Brandon.
engineering
As needed.
as needed. Would that work? Thank you.
Do you want to make a resolution?
Yes,
about
yes, you do need a resolution, absolutely, especially if we spend money.
that? Yeah.
I'll make that.
Okay, councillors, are we ready for a resolution?
I'll make that motion that we extend support as we've outlined to counselors, some administrative support
And engineering.
and some engineering to the community group that's spearheading this facility.
For Cardston.
And you can wordsmith that if you like.
I'm working on it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. All right, so this questions, do we have questions? All in favor? Thank you. Oh, Councillor Brown, you were eager.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to 9, the committee report. Can I just make a comment? There's a lot of good things that came into that committee report. Thank you so much for putting your minutes. The minutes have some advantage, some are concise, some are very long. Can you make sure that in all your committees, you can say, we finished the day and we have some resolutions that are included in your minutes? Because the person that takes a minute will only take what you've done. What we as councillors need to do is make sure that we have a resolution so that we have an actionable. Because if you don't have that resolution, you know what? You're going to be spinning your wheels because nothing will be done. So make sure you have actionables, okay? Just a comment. Here is a little bit of something. Councillor Bengry, on your airport committee, I really realized that there is a question that was asked of you that we may need to bring all councillors up to speed. We had the background there regarding the sale of that land. We had discussed that at the last council. But Jeff needs to bring back the particulars and a letter from the ministry. Would that be okay, Jeff, for the airport? Okay, thank you.
Have you got that letter, Jeff? Because that's the note I handed to Lenz tonight.
We have the letter.
If he's got subdivision, you know.
We have all that stuff. We had it, we discussed it.
Apparently, we don't, Mayor, and that's,
No.
right, frankly, we don't know who owns that land.
We know exactly, we discussed at the last meeting, I can almost tell you the story. Yeah, the airport. But it's not, it's a minister's, it's still a piece of land that is provincially owned.
Well, what I got out of this meeting at the airport.
But I forgot.
There is an individual that went around with Premier, the Premier at that time was Lougheed or something like that, and he gave every airport, rural airport, that piece of ground for $1. And he went around to every airport, and that does not show up in the land titles.
Hold on, because it's not the case.
Yeah, just with all due respect, that doesn't seem to be supported by the information.
Then how can the county tax that land and the hangars on there if they don't own it?
I don't know.
It's a very good question, Councillor.
But I know we pay a license of occupation to the province every year.
And the way we found out that the land was an issue is because we had an issue with gas lines.
Yeah, for right-of-ways.
Right, if you remember that, and we had to find out who owned the land before we could do anything. And we found out that the county doesn't own it, and the town does not own it.
Well, then what's happening with the taxes with the county?
Well,
That's these guys' concern. And
Okay.
frankly, I can understand where they're coming from.
all right. Can we bring, Councillor Bengry, can I just ask you to give us a little bit of time on this one? We need to bring all council up to speed regarding that land.
Well,
And then we'll discuss the taxation.
I asked Lenz if he has a record of the subdivision of that land, and I'll pick it up on Thursday
Okay.
night.
So that's all right, but Jeff has all the communication, I can tell you we have it all.
Because the land was in the name of one of the local farmers out there, and that farmer contributed that piece of land for the airport because it was non-farmable. So, you know,
Okay.
that's where, it's just a round and around and around, and this started way back when Marion was the
Okay,
administrator, CAO, and I want it said
Okay.
and done and finished.
can you give us the time for administration to bring back all that? I have asked administration before this meeting to go and dig that letter from the minister, because I can't remember very well that letter. And I want you all to understand exactly what the scoop over there and what the history of it is. And you're right, it's very complex, it's very, the turnaround and the taxes is another story. Let's deal with the land and then we'll talk about the taxes then. Because we try to recoup some of those taxes too when we can.
That's right.
All right, so that's all part of the intermunicipal service review. Okay, so, no, I'm reading everything. Essentially, if you have questions of anybody else, please ask. Councillor?
No, it's just something that the Communities in Bloom wanted me to bring forward. And that was in regards to, they would like to put an E.J. Wood Memorial Park on the corner, right across from the seminary building on that corner. And when I said to them, what are we talking, the whole top of the hill? They said, no, like literally a bench with some flowers around it is what they're thinking. And they just wanted to know if we would support them in that.
Okay, it depends where the location of that bench is, because the top part of that land.
It's just right across from the seminary building, like literally right on that.
It's still owned by the school, isn't it? It hasn't been
No,
turned back to us?
no.
Has it been back to her?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I need to know.
Previous council in turn sold it.
Yes.
It is,
We haven't sold it yet.
it
It's
is,
not changed title, but.
Oh,
deposits are
that's
down,
right.
agreements
That-
are-
Talking about
that that is a piece of land that is a little bit in limbo right now.
So can
I can bring your report back.
So I have a meeting with them tomorrow, so can I just tell them that?
Just talk with Jeff and I will give you the exact wording.
What time is your meeting, Councillor?
7,
Okay, let's just visit sometime tomorrow.
perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
We need
second-
to make a motion just so that they can formalize this. Like, that they can actually build a park if they want to put a bench there, with some flowers around.
We can't do it because the land
Yeah.
belongs
We
to
were
a
saying
private
that.
owner.
Might be touch premature.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
But that's okay, I can return and report that though.
Yeah.
It was their
Yeah.
question. And they had a second question, if I can just be quick here, it was, they would like to take pictures of flowers for Communities in Bloom or pictures of the Christmas displays, and they would like to show them, but they don't have a camera.
Okay.
So they're requesting if they can borrow, like, per incident, go out, take a picture, and bring the town's camera back.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, the town does not own a camera.
Oh,
And you use your cell phone and that is good as gold.
okay.
Yeah. Or Shem lends us his
Or
camera.
hire
They
Shem to
can-
come out and take.
Shem takes pictures for out of his own.
Okay, perfect.
If
And
Communities in Bloom
finally-
wants to borrow this sewer
Yes.
camera, they can.
Guys, we have 5 minutes left, so.
My last one was, I just wanted to make sure to let Angel know how much FCSS and the town appreciated all the work she did on our booths, because she set them up. Her and her people tore them down, and I just wanted to make sure that she knows we really appreciated her hard work, her and her people's hard work.
Thank
So
you very much. And I must say, on the same topic, Jeff, thank all the staff that has done much for us, for community.
That's
Shem, you done great, and thank you for all the goodies and for all the setup. Much appreciated.
There was goodies
So.
tonight.
Did you miss some? What about the mints? What about the mints? Didn't you taste them?
Just wanted to talk to Councillor Brown about the report and the rec there. There's some concerns with that committee about having an ad hoc committee meeting at the Parks and Rec on an ad hoc basis. And I see in here that you were going to address the committee's concern with town administration. Have you had a chance to talk with Jeff about that yet? So what are you thinking on that?
So what is the committee thinking?
Yeah, what are they're concerned that they don't want that, they want to continue to have the committee as it is right now?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
They don't see the value of working on project as, for example, the project that was discussed tonight?
So their feeling was this, that previously, and there's no offense here, but previously they just felt like maybe their views weren't getting put forward. And I assured them that I would be bringing forward their ideas, and their ideas already have been brought forward. And that was a concern of theirs. What's the point, right? If their feelings aren't getting brought forward. So as it sits right now, we're going to meet again in January and reassess. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's fine.
Councillor Brown?
Yes.
Make sure they do everything they want through way of resolution,
Right.
so that you can bring it to
I know.
council to represent their view. That
Right.
is so much easier for
Right.
you, so much easier.
Well, I did ask for
Yeah.
direction. You can't just
Yeah.
tell me what you want so I
Yeah.
can take it to
Tell,
council.
tell them, I need a motion. If
Okay.
you want me to speak to council, I need a
Okay.
motion to bring back a recommendation.
Okay.
It's a recommendation. We have 6 minutes, so, are we done with this one?
No, just one other question on the pool fees. You had a discussion on pool fees, are they
We
going
did.
up or down?
They're gonna up to $80, but let's not discuss
Well,
that at
okay.
this point. Would you mind?
Council yet.
No.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
All right, so there is a CAO report. I think that's a more important report right now. You could see that Jeff has taken the time during AUMA to go and solicit information on meetings, anything that could help us with the different projects we have. And I think one of the very interesting meetings he had was with Stantec regarding the outfall line and the failure that we are suffering and the cost that is costing us and the liability. And the other one was with the electrical, and another one was with Axia. That one with Axia was an interesting thing, where we realized there was a glitch as to where the contracts were sitting. So we hope to have that resolved soon. Anything else with electrical was extremely complex, but we were very happy, maybe not because we didn't have a minister, but we had at least somebody that was highly knowledgeable of the system and could understand what we were talking about. So that was a breath of fresh air. And Jeff and I felt that the meeting went well and might bear some fruit, might not, but we shall see. Anything else?
Just one quick question. I guess we're not prepared to talk too much about, but you said that there's some interesting changes coming soon from the recent policy review of community generation and distributed generation.
Right,
policy.
you have to wait for the
That's going to
announcement.
happen in the future.
Yes.
Report.
They're presenting to government at the end of the year,
Okay.
so hopefully soon.
The only thing that I would like to talk about in the next 5 minutes, if you go to the mayor's brief, there are a few recommendations that I wanted us to bring forward. And now that I'm looking for it, I'm probably not going to find it fast enough. You could see I put in bold letter of recommendation. One is regarding the need for recycling, but we already done that, so that is maybe not necessary. You could see that Minister Phillips replied to us and directed us to a member of her group if we wanted further information. So the Old Man watershed, Jeff, maybe you could bring us back at a future meeting what the idea was behind those projects that we were going to do. Remember, there was a list of action we could take in a town to protect our watershed at the local level, and we had said we were going to clean the bank of the river, and I don't
I'll have to
remember what
revisit
else.
all that, Mayor.
Okay, well, I will kind of refresh your memory on this one. The Highway 3, there is a little bit of momentum with the idea of twinning, but there's no capital there yet. So they want to know if every municipality that benefit from that corridor would write a letter of support towards the idea of twinning. That is a project that is, for the past 4 years, we're working on.
You said Highway 3.
Yeah.
It's not Bridge to Medicine, right?
Yeah. No, it goes, it goes, Highway 3 goes towards BC.
Yeah. Picture the left, picture.
Yeah, that one.
That's what they're talking about, okay.
Yeah, so if you want more information, I will give you some more. The project, the need for capital project to MLA, Jeff, I believe that has been done. We have not done it yet?
It is done.
It's done. Okay, so the other one is regarding the changes in electoral boundaries. If you look at the changes, we are now involved in a boundary that includes the Tsitsika Nation, the whole blood tribe. And so if you want us to write a letter saying that we're not quite pleased, we could do that. Yes, then give me a motion.
I make that motion.
Thank you.
Do it.
So we're writing a letter expressing
Or displeasure with the
disapproval
electoral
of the
boundary change.
proposal?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. I need a motion to adjourn. The correspondence, can you please read it? It's nothing that requires any action. Motion?
I make a motion that we we adjourn our meeting.
Thank you very much. Are you in favor? Thank you.
Now, can I